welcome listeners, viewers, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to another interesting discussion, a topic on this program, the Daily Positive Living Principle Program. I'm still your regular anchor, Dr. Daniel Otto. And I tell you, while you are on this program, your life will not remain the same again. In our last episode, we are trying to discuss the difference between thinking and worrying, and which is very key. But in this episode, we want to talk about the consequences of worrying. I told you that statistics have shown that so many are worrying instead of thinking. You should know the difference between the two so that you can engage your brain in thinking and not worrying. Worrying, like I said, is an abnormal process of engaging your brain or your medulla in a tension and anxiety state so you can produce fear or negative effect. Worrying is detrimental to the body. It's not compatible with the body at all. What then is a pathogenesis of worrying? Whenever you begin to worry, oh, had I know, how am I going to live till tomorrow? And you can no longer sleep and all of that. What happens is that it triggers a chemical substances which we call adrenaline and noradrenaline. We call it epinephrine or norepinephrine. This will begin to stimulate your blood vessels. The release of these substances will now lead to the build-up of blood pressure. And before you know it, some people, their blood pressure will begin to increase. Some enters into a malignant type of hypertension that they don't know, of unknown cause, just because of worrying. And the fear of the unknown will make you unknown. Fear of how am I going to live to tomorrow will make you unknown, will cause a development of things that you can't understand, which one of them is hypertension. What are the consequences? I'm going to be talking about the effect of this worrying one by one, because we have to examine it in total so that you can be careful, because so many people are sick. Others have developed things that are not even normal because of worrying, and they don't know where it came from. But they introduce themselves into a state of worrying, and before you know it, the body will begin to behave abnormal. What then are the consequences of worrying? One of them is panic attack. What do I say? Panic attack. Panic attack is an extreme way of fear, an exaggerated way of fear. And once there is this fear that is generated, it begins to affect the system, affect the body. Then it will go to a time that the heart will begin to beat above normal. There will be palpitation, and before you know it, the person no longer feels like he's the person. So he enters into a kind of a panic attack. He can even enter into a state of fainting. You can see some people begin to cry without any known trigger. These are all of panic attack. Do you know that as a result of worrying, so many people die in their sleep? Statistics have shown that more people die in their sleep than people die while awake. Why? Because of excessive worrying and because of nocturnal panic attack. What do you mean? Nocturnal panic attack is deep panic attack that occurs in the night while people sleep, and before you know it, they wake up, they face this person has died in his or her sleep. It's because of nocturnal panic attack that can lead to cardiac arrest and heart attack. These things are very, very important. Do you know that when you are sleeping, your brain is not totally asleep, it's awake? And so in that unconscious mode of the brain, any slight trigger of worry can cause a panic attack that can affect the heart. And before you know it, they say the person woke up and the person slept and he did not wake up. That is why we want to examine it in total. So one of them is panic attack. You see people with their eyes red, palpitation, they are feeling that their heart is beating. Normally, you are not supposed to feel that your heart is beating, but in panic attack, your heart will be vibrating. You feel that your heart is beating, which is abnormal. This is one of the consequences of worrying, and it's very, very key. We need to take care of it. What are other things, consequences of worrying? It's a reduction in immunity. Once you engage in worrying, your immune system is actually affected. Let me say this, that when you begin to worry, fear is introduced, tension is introduced, and stress is also introduced when you begin to worry excessively. Oh, how am I going to cope? And what happens is that there is a release of a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol, once it became so excessive, will start affecting the immune system. And so you become exposed to so many sicknesses. And this is as a result of worrying. There is reduction in immunity. In fact, those people that worry, vaccines or normal vaccines will not even work in them. That is why some people that worry excessively, even some of these corona vaccines does not work in them perfectly. Why? Because of reduction in immunity. So worry is very, very detrimental. So we need to be careful how we worry. What are other consequences of worry? Insomnia. Lack of sleep. Insomnia means ability to sleep or remain asleep for a long time. You see people waking up from time to time while they sleep. They can't sleep. 1-2 hours they are awake, 1 or 2 hours they are awake, and this alone reduces a man's performance. You see people during the day, they'll be sleeping all through because in the night they could not sleep because of worrying. This is very, very, very key. So productivity is reduced. And once you cannot sleep well, your thinking pattern will not work well. So it reduces productivity. Your physiology, your body function is abnormal. And so it leads to insomnia. And it begins to graduate to a level. And your blood pressure will begin to increase, get to a level that you can no longer function. This is very, very, very key. Insomnia is one of the consequences of worrying. What are other things? Suicidal tendencies. So many people have committed suicide as a result of excessive worrying. You see a lot these days. In those days, they say that Nigerians are very happy people. But now, gone are those days. Now, Nigerians, you see a lot of people killing themselves. Others are jumping from on top of a bridge and entering into the ocean. Some jump into lagoon. Others go and hang themselves. Why? Because of excessive worry. Whenever that worrying comes onto you, you don't think of tomorrow. You don't even think that there is any need to live anymore. And how does it come? There is a mechanism how suicidal tendencies come. Look, there are neurotransmitters in our body that makes us to feel good, and those are serotonin and dopamine. These are neurotransmitters that makes us to feel good. Once they are normal or they are in a large quantity in the body, you feel excited, you feel joyful. But once they are depleted, because worry depletes these neurotransmitters, which we call serotonin and dopamine. Once it becomes depleted, oh my God, you don't feel good anymore. You don't see the light of the day. You don't even think that there is something to life. And the next thing that will come to your mind is about killing yourself and all that. And many have died. Many have killed themselves because of excessive worrying. And we need to talk about it because these things are very, very key. There are issues that we need to talk about. Mortality rate has increased, morbidity rate has increased, and once you worry too much, you are prone to so many diseases. Anything can attack you. These are key issues that we need to talk about. What are other things? Arrhythmias. Your heart will be beating at random. These are very, very key. Because of worrying, your heart begins to beat at random. You don't even know how you are feeling. What are other things? Hypertensive crisis. I've talked about this one before. Because of the release of these chemical substances, some people develop hypertension. They don't know where it came from. Not knowing that it was not in the family, it was not that, but they engage themselves in excessive worrying. They worry unnecessarily, and before you know it, it gets to the narrowing of the blood vessels. Vascular type of illness begins to come, and then the body begins to, the blood pressure begins to rise, and before you know it, you have this person, you'll be labeled with hypertension. These are key issues we need to talk about. So even this can generate into stroke. By the time it goes to a level, you see some people having stroke, cerebrovascular accident, paralysis of the body. They could no longer walk because it gave to a point that the brain can no longer handle that blood pressure, and before you know it, the person dies, which is very, very important for us to take note, because these are consequences of worrying. These are key issues we need to talk about. So worrying is a negative one, and when stress comes all over body, some people, there are some symptoms that they cannot understand. Some people have feelings all over their body. They have things crawling over their body which are not real. These are what we call psychosomatic symptoms. The person will be complaining he cannot sleep. Things are moving objects all over the body, his brain, his abdomen, in the skin, and all that. There are these things that are moving, but it is not real. These are psychosomatic symptoms, and why? It's as a result of worrying. So these are psychological effects. And then the person develops into mental disorders. These are one of the keys. By the time it becomes so excessive, people will now begin to think abnormal. Most of the people that we see today are mentally ill. Once you cannot relate with your neighbor well and engage in fruitful discussion, most of the people, even at work or at home, husband and wives that cannot relate well, you are mentally ill, and it could be as a result of worrying. These are the things we are talking about, so we can examine them. So schizophrenia, obstructive, excessive, compulsive disorder. These are mental illnesses that are associated, and once people have mental illnesses, they are now addicted to so many things: drug abuse, alcohol, and smoking. All these things are effects of worrying, and we need to handle them. I told you before, as I begin to round up, that worrying is one of the reasons why people commit suicide. There's a story of this man, because he didn't know at 40-something years nothing was happening about his life, and he thinks that he began to worry too much. He thinks that there is nothing to life. That's what we're talking about, worrying. So what did he do? He decided to go and kill himself and commit suicide. He went into the bush, carried his rope, and went into the bush. While he was about killing himself and hanging himself on a tree inside the bush in the wilderness, a naked man came from nowhere. He said, "Oh God, please, so before you kill yourself, I'm not saying you should not kill yourself, but before you kill yourself, please pull off this your dress and give it to me, because all I need from you is this dress, so that when you die, this thing will not be scattered with blood. Give me this dress where you can go ahead and kill yourself." When this man heard it, his brain corrected. He changed his mind. Say, "I'm not going to kill myself again." What are we talking about? Worrying has excessive consequences, numerous consequences, and we need to deal with it. Any source, any trace of worrying, you need to tackle it and deal with it, so that your life can be healthy, so you can relate well. This is why we're on this channel. I advise you to keep on listening to this daily positive living program, and on this program, I tell you, by you keep on listening, your life will receive daily energetic, enthusiastic capsules that will not let you go into depression. And this is why we are on this channel. Keep listening, stay tuned onto this program, and your life will not remain the same again. God bless you.